Hey, welcome to the Bigger Room podcast. I'm your host, Jill Bender.
And I'm Mel Cobian, and today we're going to talk about how to forgive and let go of your past. Jill, do you hold grudges?
I don't think I do.
I know this version of us
I don't.
doesn't. In the past?
I don't think I did. No.
Yeah.
I didn't. I was proud of that I didn't really hold grudges. But I did hold on to certain things. So maybe not a grudge, unless I don't know the definition of a grudge. But no, I don't. I used to be proud that I never held grudges.
Good. I could definitely think back to, not necessarily grudge. I guess grudge is just a strong emotion of you start closing your heart off to a certain person or event because of how hurt you are about how much they hurt your feelings. And a lot of people live their life that way. They never forgive. And so they never let go of their past. In our last episode where we talked about faith, we talked about how if you live in your past, then you're creating a future from the emotions of your past. So you're not going to create a future of abundance if you're consistently mad about what happened 20 years ago.
So I did, and I've mentioned it several times, I've told about letting go of everything that I was holding on to regarding my sister and how life-changing it was for me. I never looked at it like I was holding a grudge against her, but again, maybe it's just a word, and the word just didn't, it's not what I ever called it. But yeah, when I was holding on to something so huge in regards to another human that it bogged me down every day.
Yeah. Gosh, I just, sometimes when I talk to people in the space in business and I see the potential in them, and I'm very sensitive to people's energy. I tend to tap into like my wisdom centers, and I can almost always tell when people are just in so much pain. And it's usually because they don't feel like they're worthy or something happened in their past and they can't create from that space. It's really it. Until you let go of your past and you forgive yourself, forgive whatever it is that you need to forgive, you cannot create the future that you want. And some people are probably sitting there like, oh, dang, like, I don't know if I can forgive this. Like, I think we've both been through some crazy stuff, and I can sit here and give it a story, right? That's what people love to do. So people have trauma bonds. Let's talk about that. So my wife is in the military, but this is why she doesn't let me hang out with military wives, because they always complain. And they're kind of toxic. Not all of them, though. I have to say not all of them. But that's unfortunately, the stereotype is that military wives are dependents. Like, they're just dependents and they don't have a job and they're always complaining. So what happens is, like, all these people with these same negative energies of complaining, start hanging out. And what happens? They bond off of trauma. They bond off of pain. And then they become addicted to it, because what happens when you have an emotion, it sends a signal. And it's just like the same thing as doing drugs, but we do it with emotions. And you love getting addicted to the fight or flight. You get that surge. So when you look forward to hanging out with your friend and all she wants to do is complain, and maybe that's not what you want to do anymore, and your circle of friends starts changing, it's because you're no longer drawn to that energy. It's taking from you, where before maybe you were giving to that energy and feeding it as well. So you got to pull back and take your energy back, bring it back to yourself, and ask yourself, why am I so upset? And then you're like, and then maybe it'll come like, oh, 12 years ago, this happened. But you need to ask yourself, maybe you're not aware.
Well, that's the thing, is that some people, if they don't do some really like deep dive work, guided work, they don't know how to even get to that. They might be sitting here listening to you saying, I don't have anybody that I hold a grudge to. I'm totally fine. I like nothing. But I actually was just talking to another, we'll just call her a colleague today, and she was telling me a story that happened to her when she was 7 years old, and she didn't even know it was a story that was bothering her whole life.
Yeah.
Until she did this deep dive work.
The work.
And she said, and it dragged it out. And she's like, oh my God, I have been upset about this one thing for like 50 years. Yeah. And she said, and it was so like amazing
such a relief
to acknowledge it and to let it go. So yeah, there's a lot of things that even me, like I always just think, oh, I released the whole issue that I had with my sister, but I am sure I've never even done the
probably go
work
deeper.
that some people have.
Yeah.
I could go deeper.
Yeah, you could probably go deeper. Oh, you can always go deeper, and there's no, you can always go deeper, and the saying is like, as above, so below. Like you can always go deeper, and the love is always going to get greater. When you forgive, and you need nothing outside of yourself, and you realize like unconditional love only exists inside of you, you can have that higher perspective of looking down into the problem, like whatever it is that happened with your sister, what it taught you something. It needed to teach you that. Remember, we're souls that came to earth to evolve. And so every single thing that we have to forgive, that we haven't forgiven and we haven't let go of our past, that means we haven't learned the lesson. That's all that means. If your life is not exactly where you want it to be, if you're not creating, right? We're not creating. We're still living from a program. We're still living by emotions. So remember that emotions create the events. So we have to really take a step back, honor our feelings. I'm not saying like, oh, ignore your feelings and shove them down. That's the worst thing you could ever do. I definitely did that.
Yeah.
And I never used to cry. And my wife like never saw me cry ever. I just wouldn't cry. Even as a kid, I would get hit, but I never cried. And this year, similar to our colleague, it's actually funny. The other day, something happened, and it just like I sat here and like it just triggered something that happened, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I didn't realize that bothered me. And I texted my wife back, and I'm like, I just realized that I'm still holding on to this about this situation that happened 12 years ago, literally 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. But now when I have like deep emotions, nobody can make me feel anything. That's what I tell myself. So what did I need to learn? And what I needed to learn in that situation was to speak my truth. And it was just that reminder, like, okay, noted. Lesson learned 12 years later. So I'm still going through
12 years later?
Yeah.
My lesson.
You're always
45 years.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly, it's never going to stop, but you're never going to get to the highest version of you if you don't at least start tapping into the little things that make you an angry person. Because I know some people that there's a difference between having an emotion and then being in a mood. Getting in a mood that means you're having a long emotion. Yeah, and then when you have a long mood, that turns into your personality, right? And what's your personality becomes your personal reality.
Your personal hell.
Yeah, if you have
your personal identity.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then you start identifying as emotions and this body when really you're just energy. You get to
So, Mel, I have a friend who knows that I do a lot of mindset and manifesting. I made two words in one.
Yeah.
And every time I go through and I learn a little bit more and stuff, and then I start talking to her about it, and she has a great head on her shoulder. Like, she's always like happy. She's in a good mood. She works out all the time. Like, she's got a great life, everything. But there's this one thing with her family that she will not let go of. And so every single time I bring up anything that has to do with mindset, she says, well, how do you get how do you get over this when this happened? I'm like, okay. And so then I give her a little bit of what I know. And then we go on this big long tangent, and she doesn't want to hear what I have to say, basically, because there's some attachment that she's not willing to get rid of with this thing that happened. And it comes up every single time. Like, man, you have like everything going. This one thing that's just, you can't let go of. So what can we recommend to our listeners? Like maybe a simple exercise we can give them that can, like a simple exercise, but a repetitive exercise, because it's not going to just happen by doing one little thing, you know, overnight, but something that we can give them to help them get that.
Yeah. What comes to mind, what comes to me right now is usually when we're not willing to face an emotion or forgive it, is because it still has power over us. It has power over us. And for us to hold on to the feeling means it's our way unconsciously to still have power over the situation, regardless of what happened. Because I went through it too with my family. I refused to forgive them. And when situations come up and I'm like, it's hard, I realize that if I don't forgive them, they still get power over me. They still have the power. The moment your energy, right, your mood changes is because somebody has power over you. That's the first thing. So how does it feel to know that you're giving your power? Doesn't feel good. Nobody wants to. The ego's like, no, let's not do that. So surrendering to that and honoring that, the way that I've seen transformation happen, like in front of my eyes, is literally asking your younger self and your future self, what does my soul need to know about this situation? And whatever comes through. Literally, like I, on my whiteboard, I did this with my future self because I have some deep meditations, and I asked my future self, like five years from now, what do I need to know? And what came through was, everything is okay. Like, I'm so proud of you. And that made me feel really, really good. It may feel like you're making it up, but that's the mind. We're always connected to our future self, and we're always connected to the little kid inside of us. So if something has power over you, acknowledge it and ask your future self and the little kid, your child self, even ask, are you okay about the situation? What do I need to learn about the situation so I can let it go? And boy, will it feel like you're making it up, but then you read it and you're like, wow, because all of us have the wisdom inside. It's not knowledge, it's wisdom. There's a difference.
The capability.
We can all tap into our wisdom centers by just simply asking. You ever get like random ideas? You're like, that's a really good idea. That's the wisdom inside of you.
I was going to
invent the
podcast. Yeah, I've had.
But something beautiful happens when you talk to the little kid and like making sure they're okay about the situation, asking the little kid, what do I need to learn about this? Whatever comes to mind.
And
the same with your future self,
little kid.
Well, the inner child, I'm just getting goosebumps because we're all here to heal our inner child, because our generation is here to heal trauma. And the little kids now that are coming to Earth, that are being born, they're here to teach us, as much as we don't like to admit. They're coming from from different sources, and they're just evolved souls. Like that's why they know everything. That's why you can't lie to them. Have you noticed you can't lie to the kids of this time? You can't lie to them. Their discernment is just so strong. They have a bullshit meter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Little star seeds. Yes.
My son today, I don't know. He woke up this morning. He's like, Mom, my stomach hurts so bad I can't go to hockey. And I'm like, we got to push past it. Like, we show up even when we don't feel like it. This day he's like, Mom, I just can't have any of that positive talk right now. I thought it was so funny that he is well aware of these conversations.
These kids are more awake. I'm telling you, that their generation is more awake. They can read through us, and again, we're here to learn from them as well, and co-create with them. So that is why for our generations, we have the trauma, and we needed to, though. We needed it. It's just evolution, humanity. Every generation has something.
Okay. So we've talked about getting spanked before, right? By our parents. And my son yesterday, he said, Mom, what hurt more, getting the spoon or the belt? I'm like, oh my God, the belt. He's like, that hurts so bad. I'm like, you know what? I said, you know what? I don't even remember the pain of any of it because I don't actually remember like the feeling of it. I know that we were terrified because we knew we were getting in big trouble if that was coming out. So you're right, fearful. And he said, would you cry? And I'm like, yeah, because he would stop hitting us if we didn't cry. So we learned early on, like,
oh my God,
it'll be over.
Yeah.
And I said, like, it sounds so terrible when I said it out loud. I'm like, oh my God, our parents literally hit us until we cried. Could you imagine?
Until we cried.
Anybody.
Oh.
Anybody.
No.
Somebody hit somebody until they cried today. That would be all over the news. It would be like trauma central. Like it would not.
Yeah.
No, it would never ever hold ground right now. But that was reality.
That was reality, really, and that was for our generation to take one for the team. Yeah. But seriously, it's like
sure did.
Oh, here she comes, she's gonna hit us, like, and you like started crying right away so that the hitting would last long. Mom would at least get 3 good ones in at least. And then it's like conditioning. You realize like they're not gonna stop until you freaking cry. And then you have all these bruises. I remember getting these bruises because of how the freaking belt. And then all of a sudden, no, you have to wear long jeans to school. Oh yeah, no, I had. What? I remember.
We did not get. There were no markings left anywhere.
My poor parents. I call them out all the time because I see the way that they care for my little brother, and I see the way that they care for my nephew. Obviously, I would probably have to beat my parents if they put their hands on my little brother or my nephew. Obviously. But it's more from a place of observing. Like, I pull back, and it's a lot to, again, going back to, like, the forgiveness. It's hard. It's really hard. There's a lot that you forget that you blacked out. Like, there's a lot of blackouts I had, and, like, the one that I called last week about something that happened 12 years ago was directly related to my mom. And I have to forgive it because I learned a lesson, and it's like she has her own contract on this lifetime to learn. Mm-hmm. You know, we all have our soul contract with each other. And so I don't know what hers is, but that's her journey, you know? And
it's not going to serve you any to hold on.
Oh, no. No, if I sit here and I try to justify, like, how did she grow up? And I'm like, doesn't matter at the end of the day because humans love to get attached to stories. It's more from a place of like, okay, I need to love myself, and that's what I'm here to learn. I need to speak up my truth, and that's what I'm here to learn. Like, I'm here to learn this, and that. And then I end up getting new lessons every time. And it's like, I get to evolve. I get to tap into the wisdom by just asking the universe, what do I need to learn? What does my soul need to learn? And tapping into the little kid in me. What do you need from me? Are you okay? She's happy. She's happy now. She wasn't happy for a very long time. And my future me is proud of me because I'm doing the work. And when you have that relationship with yourself, you realize that forgiveness is just part of the game. Otherwise, you live from the past. And when you live from the past, you repeat your past, and your future becomes your past.
Right.
So if you don't like your life, it's time to change. Yeah, it's time to change those feelings. It's time to evolve. It's time to take the learning lessons. But those journal prompts that we just shared with you earlier are the beginning, very beginner, but it's the beginning of acknowledging that there's a little kid in you that's probably feeling left behind, and there's a future of you that already knows you've accomplished everything. So if you know you've accomplished everything, why can't you forgive? Why are you giving your power away? Ask, and you will receive.
On that note, thank you so much for joining us today on the Bigger Room podcast. We hope you got some value out of it. We can't wait to share with you next week's episode.